Before we talk about Poirot, do you have a favourite fictional detective?
Well, the guy we're talking about, Hercule Poirot. There are a lot of fictional detectives out there capable of solving an insanely complex crime in less time than it takes most people to take a rather large dump. Amongst the most famous is Hercule Poirot, a Belgian detective noted for his numerous eccentricities, all of which were deemed so important to the character that an actor straight up threatened to quit production of one show unless they were included.
So which actor was this?
This is David Suchet we're talking about, an esteemed British actor who cut his teeth in the theatre and is respected throughout the industry for his dedication to portraying characters as accurately as possible, which is probably one of the reasons why he was in the front running to play Hercule Poirot when they were going to make a series for ITV. And the way I describe David Suchet is just think Daniel Day-Lewis if Daniel Day-Lewis looked like a bank manager from the early 20th century. Because the picture on his Wikipedia page just looks so fucking stern. He looks like, what was that evil headmaster from that BBC TV show. What was that?
Which one do you mean?
What was the name of that show?
The Demon Headmaster.
The Demon Headmaster. Yeah, he looks like he could play him. Because he just looks so stern and angry, but he's really nice apparently, so yeah. And I can't see him as anyone but Poirot, so I'm really attached to him.
There was a classic look for head teachers back in the 90s TV shows. It was always partially balding with thick moustache.
Yeah, my first head teacher had a moustache.
Like the Willard in Sabrina, he was balding with moustache.
Yeah, God, that's just a famous thing. Because you know what? The moustache conveys authority. That's why do you think every police captain in every 80s movie was a black guy with 20 years on the force stash? That's what they all were, the no-nonsense black fucking chief. The 80s, for example, in the one from RoboCop. We're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's talk more about Hercule Poirot.
So Suchet is one of those actors who's very dedicated to fully embodying a character.
Yes, and when he was cast as Hercule Poirot, he set about reading every single Agatha Christie novel starring the character, every short story, and even the fucking transcripts from the play that he appeared in briefly. Every scrap of information about this character written by Christie was absorbed by Suchet and compiled into this huge dossier on the character, which he would refer to before scenes. And he even took to carrying notes that were specifically important or relevant to a given scene or episode they were filming that day on him at all times, so he could refer to it if he ever forgot.
Now, I'm probably going to offend you a little bit.
Okay.
But I think it's important for me and for other people in the audience who might know. I don't know a lot about Poirot.
Well, he's a fucking big dick Belgian detective. The thing is, I didn't like Poirot until I had a housemate who would get stoned and watch Poirot, and I just got really into it through them. And I came in once and they were just crying because it's the last episode where he dies. And it's because he's so old. And I've been watching all the episodes where he's young and he's full of vim and vigour and he's solving crimes and he's being all dashing and handsome and witty and charming. And then the last episode he's just dead and she's like, no, Poirot! It's so funny.
There's nothing more depressing than when you going back through a series from the first few episodes, but then skip to a later episode and everyone's just old.
Yeah. You can tell the actors have just given up. Like when you watch later seasons of Lost or something like that, and you can just tell the actors are so fucking done, but they want that paycheck.
It's Supernatural is now finishing on season 15. So I've just been watching the end of season 14 before the last one airs. And if you look at that compared to season 1, it's because it's been 14 years or more.
Yeah.
These guys have aged.
Yeah, and they're just done.
They're still decent looking, but there's now jokes in this sort of show about them being old men or looking like dads. And it's no, I remember these guys back when they were young, strapping lads saving the world.
Oh, God. Now they're just tired and done in the episodes of Scooby-Doo. Whatever.
It's like when we were playing Uncharted, and it's Nathan Drake, first three games are about this hero, and then you get to game 4 where he's retired and bored because he's an old man, he's got nothing to do.
He's just diving around his attic, firing a Nerf gun, going, yeah, I'm so fucking cool, yeah! It's oh man, it's like when you just see your dad just looking at a picture of himself on the mantelpiece of when he was fitting in shape, and you're like, no!
What do you mean your dad? It's like when I look at a picture of myself 10 years ago, no!
Oh man, I look at a picture of myself from 10 years ago, what a douchebag. Can't believe any girl slept with him. What a loser. And for the people at home, it's just an example of how dedicated to portraying Poirot as accurately as possible in regards to the original novels he appeared in, David Suchet was. His little dossier that he compiled featured information as innocuous as how Poirot took his afternoon tea, which for the curious is with 3 or 4 lumps of sugar.
And what would happen if you didn't do 3 or 4 lumps of sugar?
Well, there's a story about that where Suchet said one time, I was in a scene and I had to pour a cup of tea, prepare a cup of tea as Poirot, and I went, oh no, I forgot. How many lumps of sugar does Poirot take? So I guessed 3. And then I called my wife immediately afterwards and she said, oh no, it says in your notes that he takes 4. He's like, oh no, I'll have to redo the scene now. And they said, well, actually, no, it says he sometimes takes 3. He went, oh, thank God. Well, the thing is, he would have reshot that scene if that would have been wrong. And according to Suquette, the Agatha Christie estate went as far to congratulate him on his performance for it being so accurate to what the original novel said. And that's a baller-ass thing to say as an actor, isn't it? It's like the estate of the person who wrote the novels that I'm appearing in said, fucking well done, mate. And bear in mind that Poirot has been portrayed multiple times by multiple other actors, and Suquette is the only ones who have received that honour, which must really suck for the other actors who played him. And as we so often do, Brad, let's just branch off this path of talking about the main thing in the article today. Just veer off into unknown territory, specifically roles that actors played so well they can never be replaced. Like, it's their performance is the definitive performance of this character. Like, similar to Suquette with Poirot. And I'm going to open up with Arnold fucking Schwarzenegger as the Terminator. Oh. So I think they will never recast the Terminator. They're going to fucking try. They've tried so many times, but they will never, ever replace him as the fucking Terminator.
Yeah, they keep trying to recast people, and they just the character is so synonymous with the person that it doesn't work. Like Han Solo is a good example.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
They cast what was his face?
Exactly. What was his face?
I never remember his name, but yeah,
you know what?
Weird old strange man as Han Solo.
Doing that guy, they had to bring in acting coaches to teach him how to act. That's a true fact, by the way. They brought in acting coaches to teach him and Emilia Clarke how to act.
But because technology is reaching that point now where they're starting to just digitally recreate people they can't use, I think a lot of performances now are going to become like Grand Moff Tarkin or Princess Leia. Like, they're not going to recast them; they're going to recreate them.
But even then, it still looks super fucking bad. It's like, just let them die. Speaking of Star Wars, I don't think you could recast the main 3, like Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, and Harrison Ford. It's not Han Solo, it's Harrison fucking Ford. I don't give a shit what anyone says. Can you just imagine, though, for a moment, having the balls of the Hollywood executive who said, yeah, we can recreate the swagger and just charisma of Harrison Ford, and then you hire that chucklefoot they got for Solo? So before we move on, are there any other actors you think that's the definitive performance? Like, that cannot be touched?
It's got to be big characters from big franchises, like Gandalf. I wouldn't recast Gandalf.
They're going to, though. They're going to.
They probably will have to, because Ian McKellen, I can't imagine, is going to have too many more big run around with the big staff roles in him.
You know he wants to, though. He fucking loves being Gandalf.
It's like Harry Potter is one where, like, if someone else was playing him, I'd probably be like, it's not Daniel Radcliffe.
The thing is, though, they will eventually reboot that, or they'll do side stories.
Well, no, they'll do a movie version of Cursed Child.
Yeah, and they will recast everybody.
Or they'll just wait 12 or so years and just get Daniel Radcliffe in. Even though...
No, they'll put me in the old man makeup from the end of Deathly Hallows. That looks super, super bad. So, my favourite bit about that is, like, some of the actors came off so much worse in that. So, like, Tom Felton, they aged him up so much with the makeup, and then they've got, like, the girl playing Ginny Weasley, and they put, like, a line here, and that's it. She still looks like she's, like, 18. And I was like to imagine that when Harry looked over at Malfoy, he's like, that's right. My wife's still looking fine.
I won the lottery.
Yeah, what the fuck is your thing? You made fun of me for dating a ginger. Look, I'm dating. Dickhead. Thing is, I like the end of the Harry Potter books. They say that Malfoy just, like, looks over at Harry, and Harry gives him a curt nod. Like, he gives him, like, that respectful, like, I know you, but I'm not going to talk to you, sir. And Malfoy just looks away. Says, that's right, you fucking pussy. Damn right, you were scared of Voldemort. I challenged that man. I killed, like, Wizard Hill. What the fuck did you do, asshole? Get out. You built a fucking, what is it? A cupboard. That was the
vanishing cabinet.
Yeah, the extent of your, like,
contribution
was, like, you built a cupboard that let a werewolf eat somebody. Dickhead. It's like, you will forever be known as the guy who let werewolves into Hogwarts. How about that?
This just went from Poirot to ripping on Malfoy.
He's such a dickhead. The fact that J.K. Rowling tried to redeem the Malfoys in those books cracks me up, because they were, for many, many years, completely loyal and subservient to Wizard Hitler. They are complicit in the deaths of thousands of people.
I get it for Draco.
Because he's a kid.
The point of Draco is he's a kid and his dad was forcing him anyway. But his dad in no way gets any... His dad goes to fucking Azkaban or wherever else they're going to put him, because his dad was like...
He lets Voldemort live in his house.
Yeah, and he gives him his wand. And like they're when Voldemort's like, I've won, ha ha ha, and then they're like, oh, everyone come over to my side. He's like, come on, Draco, get the fuck over here, mate. And then as soon as the fight turns, he runs away. What fucking Lucius is an ass. He tries to kill Harry in the corridors. I know it's only in the film.
It's only in the film.
He's about to cast a Vada Kedavra on a kid because the kid freed his elf. He's rich. Get a new elf.
I've always wondered that. Why doesn't he just get a new elf? It's so stupid. It's like, oh yeah, you cost me my servant. I'm rich. I can get any servant I want. It's not like he can't afford to get a fucking maid.
I mean, then that brings up the like. Obviously, this is just completely off there. But house elves, can they be passed between families, or
they can only be inherited?
They can only be inherited.
Yes.
So if you lose your house elf, they're gone forever.
Yeah.
So you would assume by this point they'd all been freed because someone at some point during a family line is going to free an elf.
No, they're not. It never happened. It's seen as being like this thing that almost no one ever does. It's like the ones who work for Hogwarts basically just have been there for generations.
How stupid is your race of creatures that they will be immediately in service to a particular bloodline, and that's it. That's your life.
Well, it's one of the things where it comes across as just really, really hacky, bad writing because the elves are described as being so much more powerful than wizards, and yet they are subservient to them. And you can tell, like in later books, J.K. Rowling goes, "Oh, this is just slavery." Like the elves are just slaves, and she tries to justify by saying, "No, the elves like it. The elves like being slaves." Like no one likes being a slave. They tolerate it because they don't know anything better.
The only way I can see that having existed in that universe is if at some point in the past the wizards cast spells upon the elves to make them subservient to the ones who were there at the time.
You know what? There's probably something that explains it and why it's not slavery.
But that would make sense. But then they're mind-controlled slaves.
It's that Rick and Morty joke of it's just slavery with more steps. It's so dumb. Anyway, let's talk about Poirot.
So Sue kept being so dedicated to Poirot. Did he stay in character the entire time?
Of course he did. That's the bread and butter of all method actors, isn't it? They stayed in character during the entire time they were filming, and it's reported that he would be Poirot for the entire day of filming.
Poirot a dick?
Yes, that's the point, because obviously Suquette's not a dick, he's a lovely grandfatherly man. On the other hand, Poirot, to paraphrase David Suquette himself, is a bit of a dick.
What is it about Poirot that makes him unsavoury to be around?
It's because in the original novels he appears in, he's described as having numerous obsessive-compulsive tendencies, as well as like a whole host of grating idiosyncrasies. Like one example of which is the fact that he absolutely refuses to eat bread that is irregularly sized. So if he sees a loaf of bread that is irregularly sized, he will refuse to eat it. He also refuses to eat eggs if you give him 2 eggs and they're of different sizes, shapes, or colours.
So if you order them in a restaurant, he'd send them back?
Yes. Well, Poirot would, and obviously Suquette didn't go to a restaurant as Poirot, but he did obviously go to lunch. And obviously, if someone brought him his lunch and it just so happened to, be irregularly sized, he would send it back in character as Poirot. And not to mention as well, like all the other stuff, like he's obsessed with cleaning and putting like place setting and all that thing, and dirt and grime and all that crap.
I always wonder with method actors, do they explain beforehand that they're going to be staying in character?
Absolutely not.
So everyone just assumed he was a prick?
No, he stayed in because obviously he's in full costume and he still spoke with like the Belgian accent and all that. So,
okay, yeah. So Daniel they'd figure it out.
Daniel Day-Lewis is a famous example of that, where he, I think, played Abe Lincoln in a movie once, and obviously he still had to use his phone. But what he'd do is he'd sign all of his texts as just Abe. so he stayed in character while texting.
I thought you were going to say message like a grandfather, just holding it and poking it with one finger at a time.
He still used his phone, but he stayed in character while using the phone. And that, to me, is just like the ultimate... That's why Daniel Day-Lewis is the best actor ever. He didn't do what most actors in that situation would do if they were asked to stay in character and treat it like it's witchcraft. Because no, he just said, oh no, how would the character of Abraham Lincoln text on a phone if he had one in the time? And that's what he did. And he'd text like with full punctuation, signing like, Abe.
Which I think is quite cool. That South Park episode. We don't know what these newfangled phone gadgets are.
It's fucking bull. Like, it's such a lazy thing to do. It's like, oh yeah, how would someone from the past react to the future? They wouldn't just scream and think the world has gone mad. Especially with someone like Abraham Lincoln, a very rational, like smart, intelligent man who's also ginormous, can beat you up. Fun fact: Abraham Lincoln was a wrestling champion. Yeah. He also once...
he also hunts vampires, apparently.
Yeah. He also once got into a wrestling match when he wrote a poem calling someone gay. Greatest president in history, folks. Greatest president in history. That's a real thing, by the way.
He wrote a poem where he called someone gay?
Yeah, his family wasn't invited to a wedding, and he saw it as a slight against the Lincoln family. So he wrote this open editorial in a newspaper saying that the groom liked to sleep with men. And obviously back then, calling someone gay was like a really big insult, and like it was a slight against their entire thing. And obviously the guy challenged Lincoln to a fight for his honour, and Lincoln sent someone else in his stead. And while these two men were about to throw down, Lincoln, and this is fucking true, just ran in out of fucking nowhere like it was WrestleMania and just suplexed the guy from behind, stood on his chest and just said, "Who else wants some?" And nobody else stepped up. Again, greatest president in history. Have you ever heard about Abraham Lincoln's superpowers?
No.
You've not heard, so he was super strong. No, he really was. He was super strong. And one of his party tricks was to get an axe and put it between his forefinger and his thumb and just hold it at arm's length for 5 minutes and ask anybody if they could do the same thing.
Yeah, I found out an exercise you're meant to do if you're training to do sword dueling and stuff. You're meant to hold the sword by the edge of your fingers and hold it out for as long as you can. And it's difficult, so we used to do it when we were in classes.
Lincoln can also fight with a sword. Right? He was once challenged to a saber duel, and he said, "Okay, yeah, I'll do that." And while his opponent was psyching himself up, he went over to a tree and just cut the top of the trees with his saber to show off his impossible to beat reach, because he was a foot taller than the dude with giant long gangly arms. And the guy just went, "You know what? Let's settle this like men and just talk about it." When he saw it, Lincoln would literally be able to stab him from across the room without trying.
I'm surprised they made this man a vampire hunter.
Yeah, no, vampires don't stand a fucking chance against that man. Anyway, let's talk about David Suquet.
How many times are we going to say that? So Suquet is considered to be the definitive Poirot.
Yes, and that's one of the reasons people tolerated him staying in character, as annoying as that was, because they realised the performance we're getting out of him is the best anyone has ever seen for this character, to the point where, like I said, the Agatha Christie estate is fucking well done, mate. And this makes it all the more hilarious that the series that he appeared in, which ran for 25 years, on and off, almost got killed in the crib when a director insisted that they knew what Poirot would do better than David Suquet. The guy who literally carried around a file on what Poirot would do in any given situation.
So there's a story here.
Yes, there is. And it all happened over a handkerchief, because in one of the earliest episodes of the first series, Poirot walks over and sits on a bench. And what David Suquet did is when he walked over to the bench, he pulled a handkerchief out of his pocket, lightly dusted it, put it down, sat on it. Director goes, "What the fuck are you doing, mate?" And David Suquet explains to the director, presumably in character as Poirot, that the bench was dirty and, he's going to clean it before he sits down. Director said, "No, that's stupid. Do the scene again." Does the scene again, exactly the same thing. The handkerchief comes out, dusts the bench, sits down on it. This devolves into a screaming argument, during which Suquet says, "I will walk off production if you do not let me include this scene." And I would like to remind people at this point, just one more time, that Suquet, prior to taking on this role, read literally every piece of literature to exist about Poirot, so he kind of knew what the fuck he was talking about. And the director and Suquet, they argued for a long time, until producer walked over and said, "Okay, we need to sort this out. What the fuck is going on?" He goes, director says he's trying to put a handkerchief down, it looks stupid. To which Suquet responded, it literally says in one Agatha Christie novel that Poirot will not sit down before he cleans, or dusts the area he's going to sit on. What I'm doing is 100% in character. And the producer went, "Well, yeah, he's right. Put the scene in." And they let him do it. Well, there were other arguments that happened during that first season. Suquet, I think it was on Good Morning or something like that, when he was talking to the host, said, "Oh yeah, I nearly walked off production multiple times when they tried to make me wear an outfit that Poirot wouldn't wear, because I wanted to be very true to the character." And I just like to think now that throughout the entire first season, every single time he was questioned, he just said, "I'll walk off set." And the people out there might be thinking, that makes me sound like a dickhead. But remember, this is the definitive performance of the character that was lauded by the Agatha Christie fucking fact. The people in charge of the property themselves said, Agatha Christie could not have cast a better person if she tried to play this fucking role. And it was lauded critically as a massive commercial success. So he fucking knew what he was doing. But I just think it's really funny that just every single time a director questioned him, he went, "Well, I read all the books and you didn't. Also, I'm an actor, fuck you, I know what I'm doing."
I would love it if every single time he was questioned, he just put his hand up to silence them, pulled out his folder, and just flicked through to the exact page where he knew exactly where he needed, and just pulled out the piece of paper, held it out, and just stood there silently.
Well, that's what he did. He just pointed to a part in one of the novels that said, "Yeah, Poirot does not sit down anywhere without, make sure it's dust free." And it reminds me a lot of one of my favourite scenes from Final Fantasy VIII. Bear with me here, folks. It will make sense. Squall, my main character Squall and Rinoa, this girl you've been told to go do a mission for, are arguing. And he says, "Okay, what do we need to do? And she really sarcastically hands a letter, and he reads it and goes, blah, 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 blah. Okay. He goes, all right. And then she says, okay, we're going to do this. And he goes, no, I don't think we should do it that way. And like, we've not been paid to do this. And she goes, well, actually you have. And just really, again, piece of paper, reads it, oh yeah, from your headmaster, do whatever this girl says. It's like, fuck's sake, damn it. And I was like, Suket did it like that. When the director's yelling at him really loud, you can't do this, you're making the film look stupid, you don't know anything. He just went, whew. So what I need you to do now, whoever edits this, whether it's Brad or Nisha, just put David Suket or Poirot's head on Rinoa, and she just does that paper slap thing. It's like, yeah, get fucked.
Thinking about it now, like, not just with detectives, but the idea of there being, like, a quirky genius is, like, actually a really common trope.
Yeah, it's weirdly specific, but it is, like, quite prevalent in fiction. It's probably one of my favourite tropes. It's the bunny ears lawyer. People don't.
What?
That's the name of it. And it's the idea is it's a person who is so good at their job that their superiors will overlook any and all personality quirks. And the example often given is, like, this theoretical lawyer who wears bunny ears at all times, but they're so good you don't give a shit. And like obviously Poirot is one such example of a bunny ears lawyer. He's a detective, he's quirky, he's eccentric, he's like, obsessive compulsive, but he always gets his man. And I think there's other examples that I think Adrian Monk from the TV show Monk is another example of that way. He's obsessive compulsive detective who's always right and everyone tolerates him for that reason.
I mean, most famously Sherlock Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes, yeah, drug addicted.
Any derivative like House. They're all the same.
Yeah.
Arseholes or weirdos, but then they're so fantastic that everyone accepts them.
Yeah. It's like, you know what, I will tolerate you being a dick. Like, they even say that in House once, don't they? Say, oh, he treats one person a week. It's like he cures one person a week. And I've always loved the idea of those characters when other characters get introduced who try and question them. Like Monk is a good example of this because in later seasons, even after like 100 episodes of him never being wrong and always being 100% right about every single theory he ever posits, however wild and insane it sounds, he still has his superior saying, well, he's a weirdo, we don't have to listen to him. It's like, he has a flawless prosecution record. He is never wrong. And you're still questioning this man. It's like House, isn't it, where even after like 9 seasons, he'll come out with some wild theory about what's wrong with a person. And all of his subordinates will say, well, your proposed treatment will kill him. He goes, when have I ever been wrong? Have I ever once been wrong about any single case we've ever talked about ever before? Why are you still questioning me after like 400 episodes?
Yeah, then he goes to his superiors and asks for the treatment that he said. And they'll say, no, that's even if it is true, this won't work, etc. Does it without permission, saves them. And they're always like, well, you shouldn't have done it anyway.
It's like, I'm always 100% right. I've never been wrong. It's so dumb. It's like, oh man. Another personal favourite example of mine is the show Lie to Me, which we discussed before. Dr. Karl Lightman, played by Tim Roth. Again, a weirdo who is an expert on deception and can basically tell when someone's lying. Constantly being questioned by people who don't understand what he's doing, despite the fact he is never wrong. Another one, the mentalist Patrick Jane, who has the ability again to read people, surmise what their intentions are, guess what they're going to do, is never wrong about any of his hunches, is constantly second guessed by everybody around him.
You get it as well in police procedurals.
Yep.
You'll have the rogue cop. Oh, I would fire you for all the damage you've caused, but you're just too good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Lethal Weapon, you got Riggs, or just police shows like CSI. Grissom, never fucking wrong. Oh, but he's deaf, so we can't trust him. It's like, but he's never wrong. He's always right now, but he's deaf. What does that have to do with anything? No, but he's deaf, innit? So he's never wrong. It's so good.
If I worked alongside Horatio Caine, he keeps cracking one-liners next to dead bodies.
And wearing sunglasses at night.
Yeah, wearing sunglasses indoors at night, yeah.
You know what, though? He's never wrong. That's why I love the trope of the bunny ears legs. They're so competent, they can't be fired. But the idea that people constantly undermine and second-guess them, even 100 fucking episodes. Like, Monk is the best example of this, though, because there is an episode where they ignore his hunch in favour of one from a fucking psychic.
And is this first season before they know how good he is?
This is 7 seasons in or some shit. It's like he has never been wrong his entire career. And they just say, no, let's just listen to this fucking psychic. Instead of the guy with the absolute flawless record who has never been wrong the entire time he's been in charge because he's a bit weird.